Hello, I'm Daniel Bowe, and today I'm going to be talking about No Opt Out. This is from Teach Like a Champion 3.0 Technique 15 in the Academic Ethos section. No Opt Out is probably the most important technique in the book. It is the first technique that I teach. I teach about 5 to 6 techniques, depending on how teachers can handle it, if I'm dealing with new teachers as their first session. And this is the very first one that I teach every time because it's most important. So the question is, what is no opt-out? No opt-out is a technique where a student can't answer a question. So this takes them from not being able to answer that question to being able to answer that question. And as a secondary benefit, it discerns whether the student's issue is capability, whether they can't answer or whether they won't answer. And that's a very important thing for knowing what next steps you need to take with the student. So there are 4 basic modes for no opt-out. If you ask a question in class, and I'm going to bring up a simple question, like I'm a math teacher. I'm actually an upper secondary math teacher, but I'm going to ask a really simple math question here. What is 4 times 5? And we have a student sitting in class and they answer, I don't know. Optionally, they may just answer incorrectly, but the most common thing you'll have is, I don't know. So you have 4 ways to go. And the first one is to just give the answer to the student. So what is 4 times 5? And they answer, I don't know. You'll say, it's 20, and then you'll ask the question again. What is 4 times 5? If they say, I don't know again, you'll go back and say, listen to me carefully. It's 20. 4 times 5 is 20. You say it now. 4 times 5 is 20. Okay? Second way is to cue the answer. It's not exactly a hint. It's to give them something that will help them in future. So I may say, remember, multiplying is just adding again and again, repeated addition. So we'll add 5 4 times. Can you add 5 4 times? Okay, and this kind of goes along with break it down. If the student answered incorrectly, you can try to identify that incorrect answer and break it down here. You can also do the same thing by pushing this work off to students, and this is a better choice if your classroom allows it. So when you're first beginning to use this kind of technique, your classroom culture may not have a supportive culture like this that's needed to give this off to another student, and it may hurt the first student's ego too much. As you build up a culture, a supportive culture in the classroom, you should be able to push this off onto another student, ask one of the other students, okay, can you answer? What is it? And then you immediately come back to that first student and ask again. So that other student has given them the answer. And generally you need to cue the first student that you will be coming back to them. Okay, I'm going to ask another student the same question. You need to listen for the answer. I'm going to come right back to you and ask the same question. And then kind of like the holy grail here is when you get students to give those cues. You should work towards the situation where you can use any of these tactics. In the beginning, it's going to be you as the teacher probably, and you should work towards students giving the answer, coming back to the first student. Then you should work towards, by giving enough cues and having the students in your classroom understand what a cue is, that they are going to cue the first student. And it doesn't mean that that's the one that you need to use all the time. It's not like that's the best choice, but having the most number of choices means your classroom culture is really good. If you can choose to use any of these at any time, that's where you need to be in the classroom. But there are some times when you just need to give the student the answer and move on. So I'm a math teacher, a secondary math teacher, and I teach students how to take notes using board equals paper, which is another technique for students who aren't really good at note taking. And we do things like write down formula or write down steps to solve a certain class of problem. And I can tell the student, hey, you need to open up your notebook and find the quadratic formula. Tell me what it says. Okay, so now can you identify A, B, and C and solve for X? Another kind of cue that I might use is giving them the next step. So We'll also have steps. So we may have 4 steps in solving a linear equation. Steps are really good for kids who are struggling, and they're just okay for kids who are kind of in the middle of the class. But this question is about kids who are struggling, so steps are really good. You may say, so what's step 2? You finished step 1, I can see you finished step 1, what's step 2? And then they can tell me step 2, and then I can ask them to apply step 2 in this situation. I work with a lot of English language learners, almost exclusively English language learners, so sometimes the problem is vocabulary, and if the problem is vocabulary, then we can give a synonym. I can give a synonym, or one of the other students can give a synonym, one of the other students can explain it, one of the other students can translate it into L1 possibly, so that really helps. We can break down if there's a mistake. This is not necessarily for I don't know, but if the student answers incorrectly, we can use break it down. We can figure out what their mistake was. We can let them know what their mistake was, or cue them in on their mistake. And then this 5th way is to find a focus word for the question. What's the most important word here? And it's kind of also break it down, because the comprehension of the question for ELLs may not be great, and then you're telling them where they need to focus their attention. So after we get the answer, we have a choice. In the beginning, after you get the answer, you may just choose to use precise praise on the kid and move on. But as your culture improves, you will want to help your students understand what their answer was and why it worked. So I can ask the student to explain their new answer. Now, if they have a new answer, can you explain it to me? I can ask them, if they answered incorrectly the first time, what changed? Why did it change? And I especially like to use stretch it. I'm going to ask, in this case, I'm going to ask a similar question. I'm not actually going to ask a harder question. If our first question was 4 times 5, and we get back to that, and we get the correct answer, I'm going to ask 3 times 5, 5 times 5, and push the kid that way. We really want to build on this success. One of the most important parts of No Opt Out is helping a student see that they can do it. They will do it, but also that they can do it. And so we want to use precise praise. We don't want to overly praise the student. We don't want to make praise have no value because we overuse it. But it is important that we praise the student. See, I knew you could do it. You struggled, you overcame, you found the answer. Good, I expect that every time from you. It also builds a culture where students know that they have to answer. They will answer, no matter what. But also that you are there to help them answer. You're not going to cut them loose and let them dangle. Can't cut them loose and dangle. But, so you're not going to let them hang. Your job is to help them get that answer, but their job is to get that answer. So, yeah, and that's part of growth's mindset too, So this works really well with Write is Right and Stretch It. These are the 3 that I normally, my first session with new teachers, I normally do 5 or 6 techniques, and these 3 are always in there, because these 3 techniques work put together will take a teacher from really struggling to mostly doing okay. So again, this has been No Opt Out, and I encourage you to include it in your classroom. If you have a copy of Teach Like a Champion 3.0, I encourage you to go look up Technique 15. If you are a teacher, do that. If you are a teacher trainer, and I think this book is best for teacher trainers, I encourage you to really push this out in your training and help all of your teachers integrate this technique into their daily teaching. So thank you very much for listening.